talk about faith and the reality in our humanity of dealing with faith. And I think there is an incredible example in the Bible. It's the example of Gideon, and I've entitled it Faith in the Fleece. Because here's a reality that I think that we all can come to understand. It is so much more, it's so much easier for us in our humanity to have faith in the things which we see and the things in which we can control. But when we look at and we understand having faith in something and having faith that goes beyond just the material, we all find ourselves in this struggle. And even though we talk about Abraham as the father of the faithful, it's not just kind of a once and done kind of situation. Have you found that in your life, for example, that you do something trusting in God and you think, I got it now. I won't have to worry about this anymore. And yet you find maybe the next day or the next month or the next year, you are troubled again and having to be able to trust God for what He is doing and what He is accomplishing. So I want to talk about Gideon and his example of faith and faith in the fleece, because Gideon is mentioned in Hebrews chapter 11 as being among those individuals who are faithful. And so it is a challenge for us to have faith. Now we know, the Scripture tells us that God is always faithful, and we sing the song, Great is Thy Faithfulness. But here's what it says about Gideon in Hebrews chapter 11, beginning in verse 32 and verse 33. It says, and he enumerates Gideon here among others. And he says here, and what more shall I say? I do not have time to tell you about Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, David, Samuel, and the prophets, who, through faith, conquered kingdoms, administered justice, and gained what was promised, and who shut the mouths of lions, and quenched the fury of the flames, and escaped the edge of the sword, whose weaknesses was turned to strength, and who became powerful in battle and routed foreign armies. And then it goes on listing other things that people received who trusted in God and who had faith in God. Now, for us to possibly better understand this even more, I'm going to back up a few verses to Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 1 and 2, because here the author of Hebrews gives us a definition of faith. It says here, now faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see. This is what the ancients were commended for. For by faith we understand the universe was formed at God's command, so that what is seen is not made out of what is visible. So let's kind of unpack these verses for a moment and help us to understand faith. Faith is being sure of what is hoped for. Now, wow, these words kind of contradict each other. Faith, meaning I trust, and I am confident, yet I haven't seen it yet, but I'm sure of this, and I hope for this. So, this is where it gets squirrely. Think about, wow, I trust, and I'm sure of things that I'm hoping for. Now, imagine for a moment you go out and you buy a lottery ticket. And you say, well, I have faith, and I'm sure that what I'm hoping for is going to come to pass. And they will tell you, well, the odds are stacked against you. But however, they will say this as well. But you can't win if you don't buy one. You can't win if you don't buy one. But so people go out, and I would challenge them in a way, because they would ridicule us in terms of having faith that there is a God who does all these things. They go out and buy the ticket, and they are hopeful, and sometimes they're a bit sure that this is going to happen. And there's certain things that they do not see. Now, That's okay for a scientist, because does a scientist see gravity, for example? No, he does not see gravity. Now, he knows the effect of gravity, but he does not see. But a scientist is certain about it. In fact, we will send space probes out. We know that gravity works, how it's going to work, and all of those things, but they're real certain about that. So I'm trying to give you some physical things that we don't see, but to help us to understand that faith is not way out there an impossibility. And because we do not understand, now here's the other thing that is important for us to appreciate in what the author of Hebrews is telling us in verse 3. Because we understand that the universe was formed by God at His command. Now wait a minute. And how important is that for us to understand? Let's put it this way. And God said it, and so it is so. End of discussion. Now, as human beings, sometimes we tell our kids, because I said so. End of discussion. But what we believe, and this makes a difference in terms of faith, we understand that the universe was made at God's command. This is going to be Gideon's challenge. Because for Gideon, and for you and I, the command of God is not good enough. Is not adequate enough when it comes to faith. So, the more that we can supposedly prove by material things, by science, the more that we might believe. But interestingly enough, the problem exists is that as you understand the laws and as you understand how things operate, what is missing in this equation or this formula is God. Because faith has to be, and is important for us to understand what we're talking about, a faith in God, invisible. But He made everything. Now, again, I've got to go back to the birth of my grandson and thinking, just 9 months ago he did not exist as a child, but it is amazing that in 9 months he grows and he's a human being and you know is loved and all of those things. It's incredible how God works and how God is a creator. So human reality wants to continue the discussion. And believing in the unseen for all of us is very, very difficult because the unseen in our minds has not yet happened. For example, we have not seen our resurrection. We have not seen our being glorified. We have not seen our personal direct relationship with Jesus per se. And yet there are things that we believe in. So believing in the unseen is difficult, and science must have measurable proof. And incredibly enough, we have developed instruments that are able to measure what we would consider years ago the immeasurable. And we have to understand as well that God says that the things that were made in the universe were made out of things that were not visible. God made it out of nothing. But as human beings, we have faith in the material and the measurable. And it was so exciting a year or so ago when scientists discovered what they called the God particle. And they were able to kind of, quote, measure it. It was exciting this past year when they were able to hear that little blip that they had these telescopes waiting for that proved Einstein's theory of relativity as they understood it.
Feeling the blues today or tired of life already? Do you have questions about life or need spiritual advice? The Worldwide Church of God is located in Fairfield, Santa Rosa, and Modesto, California. We welcome everyone to attend our worship services with us every week at the times listed on your screen.